Look.
Okay, great. Got to get this message off of my page and then sort of officially say hello to everybody that I can see right now on the, what one of my friends would call this Brady Bunch screen. Welcome, 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 welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Doug Bender, and I'm the chair of the Human Rights Commission. It is a very, 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 very humbling experience to be able to sometimes be the face of what goes on with this particular group. It's really important having you be a part of the conversations that we have, the work that we do, and helping to lift up our beloved community. It's the mission of the Human Rights Commission here in Greensboro to improve the quality of life for all of our citizens by encouraging fair treatment and promoting mutual understanding and respect. And so we focus our efforts in about 4 or 5 lanes in particular. We really have energy for those things that might represent opportunities and problem solving, if you will, in the area of education in Greater Greensboro, as well as employment, and also human services, as well as housing. We also partner very, very closely with the International Advisory Committee to get work done as it relates to supporting our immigrant and refugee community. You have an incredible group of folks, present company may be excluded, but you have an incredible group of folks that represents the commissioners of the Human Rights Commission, because they're really passionate about what it is that they do in helping to ensure that we are the very best place in the world to live and to work and to play. We came up with, and I say we, I had nothing to do with it, but some of our commissioners, let's just say, came up with this notion of offering a series on the law. And we're very fortunate tonight to be able to offer the second session in that particular series. And so I will turn it over now to, I believe it is Commissioner Kentia Smith, I think.
No, I go.
Oh, is that you?
I go first. Yeah.
Is that you? Okay, so that's Commissioner Sue Polinski. And I really sincerely hope that you enjoy the evening. I know that I will. Thank you all so much for being a part of the conversation tonight.
Good evening and welcome to the Education Committee of the Human Rights Commission, a 6-part series called Let's Talk Law. Our first meeting was about a few weeks ago. It is available. All the meetings are recorded. The topic was expungements, led by an attorney, Don Vaughn, who is a former North Carolina senator. And when we thought, now who are we going to get to talk about the role of the public defender? Well, we just got the head of the public defender office, because everybody we're talking to wants to share things with people who live in Greensboro. What you do if you have an issue with the law, what you should do, who do you talk to, what do they do? There's so many things we don't know about how to make this work. So let's talk law. At the end of tonight's session, we're going to start inundating the chat with the survey. And the survey is short and easy and very important to us. So we're going to ask you to please get that easy link and fill out the survey when we're done. One of the questions on the survey is, do you have a topic you'd like to see covered in this Let's Talk Law series? So that would just be super duper helpful to us if you could just tell us what you think you'd like to hear about or people could benefit from. So with all of that, I'm going to let Commissioner Smith, Kentia Smith, who has arranged everything with John Nieman tonight, that we are, Nieman, sorry, I put an R in there. And she's going to tell you a little bit about him, and then we're going to listen and learn. Kentia?
Thank you, Commissioner Polinski. Thank you, everyone who's in attendance. As Commissioner Polinski said, I am Commissioner Kentia Smith, and I get the distinguished honor of introducing our speaker tonight. As you all know, you've heard several times, not only is he the Chief Public Defender for the city of Guilford County, He's also given 20+ years to the law community. When we had the meeting just to talk about the planning series, I think me and Chairman Bender both just got so excited just by the questions we were asking in that meeting that we even got more enthused to have such a speaker like Mr. Nieman to present. I also would like to say, when I contacted Mr. Nieman and presented what I wanted, even though I had no idea what we was really wanting to do, I just know he was a public defender. He was right on to join and discuss his role as a public defender and really wanting to let the community know what they do, how they serve us, how we can utilize them, and most importantly, the information you need to access public defenders in case you or someone else may need one. Please let me introduce our speaker tonight, the Chief Public Defender, John Nieman. Mr. Nieman.
Thank you very much. And I'm not muted. Usually we start these Zoom meetings and I'm talking and nobody hears me. So that's a good start. There's a lot of things that I'd like to cover tonight. So let me just jump right in. And first, the role of the public defender, I think it's important first to talk about the concepts of a criminal defense attorney. I believe I'm sharing.
Yes.
No, I think it's the wrong screen. Let me stop that and try again. I thought that one and there. And so there's three concepts I'd like to kind of explain to you that give you some idea of where we're coming from, and they're important concepts. And first is the private defense attorney. All three of these areas are criminal defense attorneys. The private defense attorney is exactly what it sounds like, and that's someone that you hire to be your attorney. You typically, in that particular case, you're going to have to go, you're the one, the client is paying for that defense. A private defense attorney is someone that any attorney, as long as you're a licensed attorney, can be a private defense attorney. And the benefit of a private defense attorney is first and foremost that you choose that person. Now that can be a benefit or that can be a negative, but it's someone that you can choose to be your attorney, either by a referral or you've seen that person work, or they have good advertising. For whatever reason, you've chosen them, and that gives a client peace of mind. And so there's a benefit to that. Another benefit is that a private defense attorney has more time to chit chat, more time to become more personally involved and listen to you and your family, talk about things that may not have anything to do with the case at hand. They have more time and they're able to get more involved in your life and make the client feel more at ease. Another reason for getting a private defense attorney is you don't qualify for a court-appointed attorney. And so you have to get a private defense attorney. And that's important because as I go through all of this, I want to really impress upon you, everyone, the importance of having an attorney when you have a issue with the criminal justice system. It's very important. We watch TV and we think we know how this thing works, but as we talk this thing through, I hope it'll become apparent that it's very important to have an attorney. The next concept is the court-appointed private attorney. And that is that this is an attorney that is, you don't have to pay. I guess I should back up. One of the issues with a private defense attorney is that you need to pay that money. Typically, for a criminal defense attorney, you pay that money up front. Most private defense attorneys are not going to do anything on the case until they've been fully paid. So you need to get that money up front. A court-appointed private attorney is someone who is paid. They are paid by the state. We'll talk about whether a client has to repay the state for that when we get into more detail, but You don't have to put money up. That attorney can jump right in and do that. And that a court-appointed private attorney is just the same as a private defense attorney. They're not employed by the state. They have their own office. And oftentimes, they also do private work. They also do work that you pay for, which puts them in kind of might be a difficult position where they may have a court-appointed client sitting next to a private client, and the private client has paid them $10,000, $15,000 to do this case, and the court-appointed client is not paying anything up front, and in worst case scenario is repaying the state if they are found guilty at the rate of anywhere from $55 to $80 an hour, depending on the nature of the case and when the case occurred. It's almost like that commercial you see for StubHub, where you've got one guy sitting, these guys are at a sporting event, and one guy paid $18 for his seat and the other guy paid $120 for his seat. It's the same sort of thing. But they still, a positive point of a court-appointed private attorney is that they have been vetted, and we'll talk about that later on. And then the last concept is the public defender. A public defender's office is I would say, from my perspective and my my own experience, is the most beneficial because the positives of a public defender's office is that you have experienced attorneys who are coming in, and you get the combined brain power of the entire office. There are 29 attorneys in the Guilford County Public Defender's Office. When you walk through our office, the attorneys are not talking about the game last night or a movie they were watching or a television show. They're talking about each other's cases, so that you've got all these attorneys who care about them. And these attorneys are vetted. The attorneys in the Guilford County Public Defender's Office are the result of anywhere between 200 and 600 resumes for each of these positions. They are people who have worked with us for many years. And I would argue to you that while many people would believe that that a public defender is somehow less of an attorney than what you're going to get with a private attorney, that you get a lot of benefit from that. There are 43 prosecutorial districts in North Carolina, but only 18 of those districts have a public defender's office.
That's terrible.
Pardon?
I think that
There are only 18 public defender's office, and Guilford County is very fortunate that we have one. Given that, I'd like to talk a little bit about history, to give you some historical background. The right to a court-appointed attorney is a relatively new concept in the United States. The right was a product of a U.S. Supreme Court case, Gideon v. Wainwright, that was decided in 1963. That's 1963. Before that, one did not have a guaranteed right, even though the Sixth Amendment details a right to an attorney. It was not recognized throughout the country until Gideon v. Wainwright. And who that was the young man named Gideon down in the state of Florida was charged with breaking and entering, and the state was going to prosecute him for that. And they have their district attorney and all the state there against them. And he said, I want an attorney. I can't afford an attorney. I've got an 8th grade education. I have no money. I want an attorney. And the Florida court said that our law doesn't provide for that. And so he represented himself at his trial. He, from all reports, did a pretty good job. but unfortunately he was convicted, and he appealed it to the Florida Supreme Court. The Florida Supreme Court said, no, this is what our law says. And he did a handwritten appeal to the United States Supreme Court. And in 1963, the United States Supreme Court said, no, the Sixth Amendment guarantees this. And because of the 14th Amendment, it applies to the states. And so this is something that you're going to have, that you have a right to court-appointed attorney. This whole country is based on the fact that we don't want the government to be in control of us. And here the government wants to either take your life or put you in jail or take your property. You should be able to have an attorney. And in response to that, in 1970, North Carolina decided the North Carolina State Legislature decided they were going to do an experiment, and they're going to put a public defender's office somewhere. And they decided to put it in Guilford County. Guilford County is the oldest public defender's office in the state. It was the first public defender's office in the state. It was established in January of 1970. We're getting ready to celebrate our 52nd anniversary. The first public defender was Wally Harrelson. He was the public defender until 2011, till his death in 2011. He was succeeded by Fred Lind, who began with the office in 1974, and he served as the chief public defender until his retirement in 2019, and I have been the public defender for the last 2 years. So in 52 years, we've only had 3 chief public defenders, and I've only been doing it for 2 years. In the Guilford County office, we have 29 attorneys. 21 of them serve in the Greensboro office, and 8 of them serve in the High Point office. I realize this is the Greensboro Human Rights Commission, but I feel important to mention High Point as an important part of this district. We have several High Point assistant public defenders on this Zoom call, and so it's important to mention them. And we have, as I said, 29 attorneys, 4 investigators, and 8 support staff. So we don't have the support that a lot of offices have, but we have first-rate attorneys. And all of these attorneys, as I said earlier, in the Guilford County office are the result of between 200 and 600 applications. We get applications from attorneys all over the country. We are buttressed in our work by interns from law schools in the area, primarily from Elon and Wake Forest and UNC and North Carolina Central, but we've had interns from law schools all across the country. The Guilford County Public Defender's Office, we are not short on pride. We consider ourselves the gold standard of public defense, and we are recognized, I think, by the legal community for the great work that these people do. And as I said, walking through the halls here, the discussion is about cases and new case law, and it is just dedicated professional attorneys and support staff. And my job as chief public defender is so much easier because of that. The attorneys and staff here are hired by the chief public defender and serve at the pleasure of the chief public defender. But it is not where I have to worry about firing people or doing any sort of HR in that regard, because people who are drawn to public defense are drawn because of a desire for making a difference in the community. And we are lucky to have those people doing that. Next, I want to talk about, well, how does one go about, how do you get a lawyer? How does this happen? There are 3 ways to get into the criminal justice system, to get yourself to become a defendant. And that is arrest with a warrant, arrest without a warrant, and a criminal summons. Arrest with a warrant is where a judicial official, a magistrate, or a judge has determined there is probable cause and issues a warrant for your arrest. Arrest without a warrant is where a law enforcement officer believes they have probable cause and arrest you for an offense that was committed that they either saw or had sufficient probable cause to make the arrest. And a criminal citation is where the officer, upon probable cause, just gives you a citation, a criminal summons, and tells you, I'm charging you with this and come to court on this court date. If you are arrested, then you're going to be taken downtown. And once you've been arrested for a criminal offense, you are technically in the custody of the state until your case is resolved. And the only way you're going to get out of jail is if you can meet the terms of your pretrial release, whatever terms, and there we're talking about bail. We could do an entire 2 or 3 meetings like this on the issue of bail and pretrial detention in North Carolina now. But suffice it to say that the magistrate will set the terms of the bail, whether it's a $10,000 secured bond, or in best case scenario, a written promise to appear. Some of you all who watch television, you might hear the term that someone is released on their own recognizance. Hopefully everyone recognizes that's just not a word we use in North Carolina. Recognizance is just not our word. We say a written promise to appear. And that is, you say, look, if you let me out, I'll come back to court. But if you're given a bond and you can't make that bond, you're going to sit in jail and you will have what's called a first appearance. And that is, you'll be brought before a district court judge. In Guilford County, you'll be brought the next business day. The law is that it has to be first, the law used to say 96 hours, now it's 72 hours. But in Guilford County, it is the next business day. So we've always done a good job of doing it right away. And also in Guilford County, for more than 20 years, we have allowed first appearances for misdemeanors. That is a relatively new thing. The legislature just passed a law that made that mandatory for misdemeanors throughout the state. But we have been doing it in Guilford County for well over 20 years, where you get that first appearance to get in front of a judge, because the important thing there at that first appearance is that is where the judge is going to ask you, what do you want to do about a lawyer? And so your choices, you have 3 choices. You can represent yourself, you can hire your own attorney, or you can ask for a court-appointed attorney. Now, since Guilford County has a public defender's office, if you ask for a court-appointed attorney, you're going to be appointed to, and the judge grants it, you will be assigned to the Guilford County Public Defender's Office. But you may ask for a court-appointed attorney, but how do you qualify for one? Well, you have to be charged with an offense for which, if you are found guilty, you could get a prison sentence. And so that's why you're not going to be eligible for a traffic ticket, which the most you can get is a fine, or you're not going to be eligible for a low-level misdemeanor where the punishment does not include an active sentence. So first you have to be charged with an offense for which you could go to prison, and you have to show by affidavit, that is, you have to swear that you do not have enough money to pay for that attorney. And if the judge finds both of those, the judge will appoint the Guilford County, here in Guilford County, the Guilford County Public Defender's Office. Now, we also have private court-appointed attorneys. How do those come about? Well, every district, whether they have a public defender's office or not, has an indigent defense committee. And that is a committee of experienced lawyers who are appointed by the senior resident superior court judge, the chief district court judge, appointed by me as the public defender, appointed by in Guilford County, the High Point Bar Association, the Greensboro Bar Association. This committee meets, and I'm part of that committee also. Attorneys apply to be considered to be on the list for court-appointed appointments. And so we review their application, we see what kind of experience they have, We get reports from judges and other players in the system that can tell us about this person's abilities. And based on their ability, they can be put on various lists. There's a certain list for high-level felonies. There's certain lists for middle-level felonies and for misdemeanors, people who qualify for those various lists. Notice sometimes you hear people say that that certain lists are for serious offenses. And in this office, we try not to speak like that. Every criminal offense is a serious offense. Every time someone is charged and has and is put in jeopardy of losing liberty, of losing money, of losing property, of losing their life, these are serious to that person, and they're serious to us. We take them seriously. So in this office, and again, I'm sure it's at every office, but I can speak for this office, every case is a serious case, and we take it seriously moving forward. Now, when do we need a private court-appointed attorney? Well, there's situations where there is what we call a conflict of interest. And that is, an example of a conflict of interest is someone who has been accused of a crime against one of our other clients. We certainly can't, in the same office, be representing people who have these clear conflicts of interest. Or if you have co-defendants, if there are more than one person charged with the same crime, then that presents a natural conflict of interest. One client is going to may want to say, I didn't do it, he did it. Or they may, one client may be offered by the district attorney that if you'll testify against the other guy, I'll dismiss your case or I'll give you a better sentence. So generally speaking, if there are co-defendants, we're going to have a conflict, and we'll appoint private assigned counsel. That is, people who come off the list who have been, as I said before, vetted by the Indigent Defense Committee to be qualified. And also, when there are complaints, if they happen from someone who feels like that their attorney isn't working hard for them, we have the Indigent Defense Committee in my office there for people to go to and talk to us about it. And we can look and see, is there a problem? Something you don't have with a private attorney. If your private attorney that you pay for isn't doing what you think, well, that's between the two of you all, and you all work it out wherever you can. I may sound like, in fact, I'm hearing myself, I may sound like I'm being negative about private defense attorneys, but please let me tell you, some of the finest attorneys I know are private defense attorneys. Some of people who've been in our office and decided they wanted to do that, great attorneys. So I no way do I want to say that private counsel are not beneficial and not worthy of the trust that their clients put in them. There are situations, for example, if you are charged with murder, then the appointment comes from the Capital Defender's Office. In Guilford County, we pretty much send anyone who's charged with murder, their case is sent to the Capital Defender's Office, which is a statewide office out of Durham. Their office is in Durham, and they have satellite offices, and they make the appointment from a list of attorneys who are qualified to do murder cases. There are 7 of us in our office who are qualified to do murder cases. So we have attorneys in our office who handle murder cases, but that appointment comes from the Capital Defender's Office, and any oversight in those cases come from the Capital Defender's Office. So that's kind of how one gets a lawyer. I mentioned it in first appearances. If you make your bond and your bail and you're out of jail before the first appearance, or if you were given a criminal summons, in Guilford County, you'll be given a court date in what's called waiver court. And that first court date you have for a criminal offense You go into court and all they're really doing on that court date is determining what you want to do about a lawyer. Same questions. Do you want to represent yourself, hire an attorney, or ask for a court-appointed attorney? And those appointments come out of the waiver court. And so everyone, before they go in front of the judge to try to do their case, to try to dispose their case, they first have a situation where they're asked what they're going to do about a lawyer in their particular case. One other point that we have here in Guilford County is that even though the legislature is and some judges are trying their best not to have it happen, there is no right to having a defense attorney in first appearance court speaking for the people who are there. The attorneys in this office, once I became a public defender, all on a voluntary basis, volunteer to be in court at first appearance court so they can inform the judge of any issues that may be with this particular case that they may know about and see if they can help get the person out of jail. And we're there to take notes so we know right away, we can find out right away that we're in this case, and there may be cases that we need to be starting doing something right away instead of waiting for the appointment to come through the channels, through the clerk's office and everything like that. So that's kind of how you get a lawyer here in Guilford County, and it's not that different in other counties, but my knowledge on these things is pretty much confined to how we do things here in Guilford County. Next, I'd like to talk about the role of the criminal defense lawyer, because I hope one thing that's come through all this is that once we get the case, the work that's done by the private defense attorney and the court-appointed private attorney and the public defender is the same. There is no difference in the way a case is handled, the way a client is treated, except for perhaps the ability to chit-chat. The same work is done, the same passion is done by all of them, by good attorneys. Just like anything in the world, you have good attorneys and bad attorneys, but all the attorneys that I know that are doing the work have the same systems and the same passion and the same zeal for their clients. So what is it that what's the role of the criminal defense attorney? A lot of times people will say, when they find out I'm a criminal defense attorney, and this is for all criminal defense attorneys, how can you do that? How can you defend someone who does such terrible things? And our answer is pretty uniform, is that we aren't defending terrible things. We're defending the rights of our client, and by extension, your rights. The role of a criminal defense attorney is to make sure that before the government, before the state intrudes upon our client's life, either by putting them in jail or taking their property or putting them to death, they've got to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt using admissible evidence. And that's why it's so important to have a lawyer, because you have to have a full knowledge of the rules of evidence, of the constitutional rights that you have, how the state has to go about doing it. And this is just so vital and such a, I would argue to you, a noble task that these attorneys do. It always, hopefully, one of my missions in life is to have as many people as possible share with me the disgust when I hear someone say someone was let off on a technicality. That term is used to denote when some evidence has been suppressed or someone's case has been dismissed because the state violated a constitutional right. That constitutional right is just so important. It's what makes this country great. There are plenty of countries who have wonderful people and wonderful coastlines and wonderful scenery. But what makes this country great is that we have that Constitution. And when we let that go, we lose part of our greatness. And what criminal defense attorneys are doing is making sure that those constitutional rights are upheld. And one of those rights, in addition to making sure that they don't violate the Constitution when they gather evidence against you, is that they have to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, that they have to gather sufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, sufficient admissible evidence. That burden is on the state, and the burden is on the defense lawyer to make sure that burden stays with the state. If you are representing yourself and you're not aware of a constitutional violation, if you're not aware that they're not allowed to do that, no one's going to stop them. The way our system is set up, the adversarial system we have, is that we have to object to them using that illegally obtained evidence. And if you don't know that it was illegally obtained, or if you have an attorney who isn't qualified and doesn't realize that this is illegally obtained evidence, then nothing's going to happen. You run the risk of being convicted of a charge when there was not sufficient admissible evidence against you. And so this is why it's just so vital. The attorneys, speaking to court-appointed attorneys or public defenders, is that they are paid by the state, and so they're not going to work as hard. Well, that's just absurd. Does anyone think that anyone went to law school and took the bar exam and works all day, every day in order to serve people up to the state to go to prison? That's something anyone would want to do for a living. Most attorneys that I know, pretty much all attorneys I know in public defense, went to law school to make a difference, to help people, to make sure that people's rights and lives are not adversely impacted by the state, by the criminal justice system, that the criminal justice system doesn't make their lives worse because it's there. And so that idea that court-appointed attorneys or public defenders are not zealous advocates it just makes no sense. And the evidence that you can gather in the courtrooms of Guilford County are that that is not the case at all. We are, the Guilford County Public Defender's Office, are recognized by judges, prosecutors, and other attorneys, as I said, the gold standard of public defense. I could not be more proud of the fact that I was allowed to be an assistant public defender, and that I am in the position of overseeing the people in this office doing the work that they do in taking care of their clients. People say that public defenders and court-appointed attorneys are plea lawyers. And I would argue that is not the case. They are defenders. One can get statistics that will say that and which is true, that we try more cases than anyone else because we have more cases. We plead more cases than anyone else because we plead more cases. One thing I like to tell people is you can't do this by statistics, because justice is on a case-by-case basis. You can't just say, we don't have quotas. I need you to try this many cases. I need you to plead this many cases. Every single case is important to our client, and they are important to us. And so what does the attorney do? Well, they get the evidence from the state because they have to prove it. First, they want to see, what does the state have? What evidence do you have? And then we look at it and see, is this admissible? Is this evidence sufficient? And then we're looking at where does the evidence go from what they have? And we go confirm it. You'll get so many times where a police officer will put in a report that the defendant confessed. And then you go and find out exactly what was said. And it may be something like, look, if you're going to just charge me, okay. I've had those statements, not okay, I did it. It's if you're going to charge me, okay. And that was written up as a confession. And so we have to look into what is the evidence that there is. We ask our client, what did you say? How, let's see what we can do. We ask the family members, what's going on with this particular case. And then we put it all together, get together this case. And when all is said and done, it's the decision of the client what to do. And sometimes we may disagree with it. A lot of times we'd love to try the case. I mean, truth be told, I know I went to law school to try cases. Love getting up in front of people. I got 2 or 3 suits. I can buff up my shoes and get in front of a jury and boy, that's just wonderful. But at the end of that trial, I get to go home. The decision is the decision of the client, whether to take the plea or not. And so oftentimes because of the work we've done, then we get a plea offer that when you weigh the options of, well, listen, here's one thing I do know, that if you are convicted of the charge that they're charging you with, this is the sentence that the judge, there's a range of sentences. This is the worst and the best you're going to get. And over here is the plea offer, and it's much less. It's still a conviction. It's still a punishment, but it's much less. And you have to decide. And I'll support you anyway. And this is the way every single member of the public defender's office in Guilford County works, and all good attorneys that I know, how they handle their cases. This county and Greensboro, the city of Greensboro, can afford to be very proud that we have these people who are doing this. I'm kind of, I didn't really want this job, and they've kind of put me out to pasture, because with 29 attorneys and all these people, it's mostly a administrative job and that sort of things. But I live through the work that these attorneys do, and having to find their victories where they can. I've tried over 100 jury trials. I've tried thousands of bench trials. I think one of the best things I've done, of all the people that have been able to be found not guilty and go home and everything, was a young man who received a minimum 30-year sentence. He was charged with first-degree murder of his father, with attempted kidnapping of his grandparents, of attempted first-degree murder of 5 police officers who he shot at. When I was first assigned the case, the district attorney said, the only plea offer that's going to be is whether or not we seek the death penalty. He can either get life without parole or the death penalty. That's all that's going to be. And the investigator in our office and myself, we went and we found the young man's medical history. We spoke to the family members, his school records, all kinds of testimony from people who knew him and knew the relationship with the father. And we were able to get a plea that he will, while he will serve time, he'll be out of prison before he's in his mid-50s, as opposed to the death penalty or life without parole. There are not many things where you take satisfaction in the victory of having a client who only goes to prison for 30 years. But that's what the people in this office deal with. But they are, the pride is evident whenever a client, as often happens, a client will say, well, what do you think I should go get a real lawyer? And the people in this office never take offense and say, if you would like to do that, that's fine. I want you to be comfortable. They don't have to take offense because they know who they are. They know who the quality, the passion, the knowledge, the experience that every single attorney in this office has. So I'm gonna kind of end up with just finally talk about the title of this piece, and that is, what is the role of the public defender? I've been using the term public defender to also denote the assistant public defenders. The attorneys who work in this office are referred to as assistant public defenders, technically, but they're all public defenders. But the role of the chief public defender is that that I'm there to advocate policies in favor around the courthouse and in the community that can benefit our clients and the public in general. The district attorney's office has their own perspective, and the judges have their own perspective, and the clerk of court and law enforcement. And so I get to speak on behalf of criminal defense clients and the general public. It's been a huge role with regard to the pandemic, about how do we open up the courts and where we go forward, because we're particularly concerned about the people in our jails who are awaiting trial. I don't know if I made a big point of it, but we should know that our jails, the people in the jail are innocent. If you believe that you're innocent until proven guilty, jail is where you sit and wait for your trial. If you are convicted, you go off to prison. But the jail in Greensboro and the jail in High Point is populated by people who are merely charged with an offense and are waiting to have their case resolved one way or the other. And you can imagine what a COVID hotspot the jail is. And hopefully you can also imagine how unfair it is that someone is sitting in jail merely because they don't have enough money to get out of jail. And so we advocate for that. Also, I'm here to provide a second opinion for clients and family members. A lot of times we think a second opinion is a different opinion. In my case, 99.9% of the time, they'll family or clients will come see me, and I'll tell them, yeah, what your attorney told you, that's exactly right. That's where we are. And it's comforting to them to hear from someone else. They've heard, there's that benefit of what the public defender does. And then the least part of my job is to supervise the people in this office. The people in this office are committed and passionate and devoted to the work that they do. And so my job, as far as supervising them, is often telling them, look, it's 8 o'clock at night. You need to go home. It's a Saturday. Take some time off. It's more that because they are so dedicated to their clients and to the concept of justice. And I'm so proud to be in this office. I can't express it enough. And so that's my take on the role of the public defender, and certainly open for any questions.
Well, we have questions. We have a lot of questions. So first thing I'm going to do is put into the chat the link for the survey. Don't leave now. We'll put it in again, but if you have to go, please make sure that you take care of the survey. It's very important to us. Let's go to the questions. The first question is actually a question I had. It's something that you said earlier that I got some comments about. And it said, did I understand correctly that if a client with a court-appointed attorney is found guilty, the accused is responsible to pay his attorney in full? And I wondered, if not found guilty, are the legal services free to the accused?
That is a great question, and one I should have addressed in the, because I'm looking in my notes and it's right there, and somehow I went past it. The way it works is that if you have a court-appointed attorney, either a private or a public defender, if you are found guilty, you can, as part of your punishment, be required to repay the state the cost of the attorney. And it would be at the hourly rate that for whatever case that would be. Now, the part about that that's important is that because it is a part of a result of this conviction, they can't make you pay if you are not able to pay. So that if the court finds that you are indigent, you don't have the money to pay, the court can and oftentimes does waive that repayment. So it's only applicable if you're found guilty, and then if you don't have sufficient funds to pay it, that can be waived.
Okay. There is a question. Is there a list of criminal defense attorneys? Is there any kind of list that you can look at if you are looking for a criminal defense attorney?
If you're looking for a private attorney, I think the best way to do that is to go to the North Carolina State Bar website. Now, that's different, and this is something people often confuse. The North Carolina State Bar is the regulatory agency that oversees attorneys and licenses them. The North Carolina State Bar Association is a voluntary organization of attorneys, and it's a nice resource, but that's not a regulatory body. And an attorney does not have to join the North Carolina Bar Association. Fine association, but people get confused. If you want to find out something regulatory, the North Carolina State Bar. And so all attorneys are listed in with the North Carolina State Bar, and they have a lawyer referral service where they can give you names of private attorneys. But you know, we used to have this thing, I am showing my age, it was called the Yellow Pages. And they used to list them there. That's no longer there, but there's probably some list that you could get on the internet for Greensboro criminal defense lawyers. But it's like finding a doctor, asking around and getting referrals is by far the best way to find a quality criminal defense lawyer.
This is an interesting question. I think it's kind of very now. Our nonprofit is creating a bail fund. Is there any way we can organize any nonprofit or any group that wants to pay the bail for someone?
And I know where this is coming from. I have several, looking at the people out there, I have several of my friends from the League of Women Voters who are there, and good to see you all. And they have a real strong interest in the problem I was referring to earlier, and that is the people in jail. There are nonprofits around the state and around the country that are doing this. First of all, as I will say that the rules of ethics prevent a defense attorney from participating in bailing out their own client. And so there's it has to be private. It's best done by private citizens doing that. And there are a lot of things that go on. As I said, we could do an entire 2 or 3 entire programs on bail and pretrial detention. But the easy answer to that is yes. It can be the idea of who are you going to help and to get them out of jail, and what issues are involved there, and whether you're going to use a bondsman or not. So there's a lot. It's a lot more complicated than merely getting a lot of money and going down and paying people's bail. But it is a noble effort. It's just very, very complicated.
We may have to put that bail on our list for next topic. Next question. Do you see, wait a minute, in January 2020, Judge Craig and Judge Vincent issued a pretrial release policy. Have you seen this affect the pretrial release and court fees for more cases, or has it had very little effect?
I would say it has a good effect, and it certainly, from my perspective, and I think I start off by saying perspective is everything. From my perspective, it hasn't had enough of an effect, but it has had a great effect. We have bail is determined by magistrates and district court judges. We have 14 district court judges who bring 14 perspectives to the issue of bail and pretrial release. And so several of them have taken those guidelines, and they are only guidelines. They are not mandatory order. They have taken those guidelines very seriously. And there are others who have continued business as usual based on their own personal beliefs. I'm not here to say that there are good ones and bad ones, but there are some who have different opinions about pretrial detention from mine and from the gist of what Judge Craig and Judge Vincent order seem to promote.
There's a follow-up to the previous question about bailable organizations. And it says, the question is there a list of bailable people listed anywhere in maybe the magistrate's office, the clerk of the courts, the public defender, etc.?
The Guilford County Sheriff's Department's website lists all the people who are in jail and what their what their bond is, what their bail would be. It's not perfect. Sometimes it's a little off, but it's close enough that would be the best resource to get those. There are hundreds of people in our jail, depending on the day, but there are close to, it can be close to and over 1,000 people at any one time who are sitting in the jail. And so it's quite a list.
Okay, this won't be a short answer. Do you see any problems with our legal system here in Guilford County in terms of fairness, or do you believe there's always a level playing field?
This was the thing you said there was a short answer?
No, I said it won't be a short answer.
I guess the short answer would have been life is not fair and the criminal justice system is life. Without making accusations, the same thing that is a childish prank or a family dispute or a personal problem in an upper middle class or wealthy neighborhood is a crime in low income neighborhoods. And so getting into the system that's why we have so much work. Most of the people who are in the system are poor and for various reasons, some of which are they would bring on themselves, but a lot of it is because of the difference in our socioeconomic groups that we have throughout the country and certainly here in Greensboro. As far as how they are treated, the idea of whether because in district court for misdemeanors, the judge sits as judge and jury, and whether someone is fair is, again, someone's perspective. Our judges are elected, and this is, again, something people don't pay a lot of attention to. They pay a lot of attention to the president or the governor, but I would argue that a judge has a whole lot more impact on a whole lot of people, more so, and we don't pay as much attention to it. We have, as I said, 14 district court judges. Some of them are the finest judges and legal minds that I know, and some aren't. And I think that's as far as I'm willing to say. And so because the system is based on people, it's going to be hard to ever say it's fair in everyone's mind. But it is, I hate to use that old saw that it's the worst system in the world except for all the others. It's what we have and what our job is. We're coming back to criminal defense lawyer and public defenders. Our job is to fight every day to try to make it fair for our clients and for everyone.
Right, I've got two questions that just fit together. They're short, and again, I don't think this is going to be a short answer. Approximately what percentage of your clients are Black, brown, or other minority? That's the first question. And the second one is, do you think race or income is a bigger factor in the conviction rate for your clients, or are they both so impactful that they're both a problem?
The first part of the percentage is that it depends on the day of what that is. There are some times that, now the majority of our clients are persons of color. But what that percentage number is, it really depends. This is Guilford County. Because I have good friends who practice down in Randolph County, and there it's mostly white, and maybe if you combine white and white identifying Hispanic, that would be the clear majority in a place like Randolph County. In Guilford County, the percentage, like I said, I feel more comfortable just saying the majority. And as far as fairness, that is the answer that in addition to doing what I do, I teach, and the legal teachers who teach in law school or in other areas, the answer most given is it depends. There are judges that we get the perception that socioeconomic status makes a difference in the way they treat the people. There are, I don't see that being fairness being an issue at race in the courthouse, because so many of our leaders are people of color. Most of our district court judges are people of color. And so, as I said, getting into the system, there is probably a great racial component, but I don't feel comfortable saying that race is a significant factor in fairness in the courthouse in Guilford County. However, it is always an issue, and it is certainly an issue when it comes to getting into the system, and then where it goes from there. Now, when we get to the higher levels in Superior Court, where we're dependent on plea offers being given by prosecutors, there are some attorneys who think that certain prosecutors have that component in them. I don't have enough firsthand knowledge to feel that way. I know I was primarily in High Point, and I did not feel that was a factor, that race was as much a factor as socioeconomic status with the prosecutors in High Point.
Good. I'm trying to combine similar questions, so here's another twofer. When talking about plea deals, do public defenders also discuss the long-term impact of having a criminal record? The other half of that is, if the public defender advises me to take a plea bargain, how do I know it's in my best interest because I'll have a conviction on my record?
And here you're talking about the collateral consequences of what happens. And we are very mindful of the fact that having a criminal conviction, particularly a felony, the impact that has on our clients. And that, yes, I mean, the easy answer is yes, we take that into account. And again, it is not that common that we advise a client to take a plea. We offer it to them and give them they have to make the choice. And now, oftentimes a client will report back that we advise them to do it because they felt that because of the way we presented the evidence to them, they felt they didn't have a choice and that sort of thing. And that's completely understandable. But it is that issue of deciding whether or not to plead guilty to a crime is just such unless you've been in it, there's no way to be able to understand it. It is a huge, especially if it's your first offense, especially if it's something that's going to make you a convicted felon. One of the good things, and your last presentation with Senator Vaughn about expungements. The good news is that the legislatures and are recognizing that. The cynical part of me would say a lot of these legislatures have kids who get in trouble, but I'll try not to be cynical and just say they're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. That there are much more opportunities to get an expungement. So that is good news, but it's still, it doesn't completely eliminate it, and it is a huge consequence. Even if you're getting probation, don't have to spend a day in jail. Having a criminal conviction, having a felony conviction is something we take very, very seriously and make it a part of our negotiations. If the state has sufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt our guy committed a felony, we're fighting like heck. We're not talking about, trying to deny guilt or anything else. We're fighting like heck to make a misdemeanor plea attractive to the DA, so they'll make us that misdemeanor offer instead of a felony conviction.
Okay, those people with felony convictions have to watch the previous night of this where they talked about expungements. Okay, next question. If we're in a trial and there's a jury and I have a public defender, does the jury know it's a public defender so they may think I'm not well represented due to, I'm adding a couple of words here, due to some misunderstandings we all have about public defenders? Do juries know?
The answer to that is it depends. There are cases where, due to the totality of the circumstances, I've thought it was a good idea that they do know, and after talking with the client, that they do know, because for example, if they're charged with drug trafficking, it sometimes is helpful for the jury to know, well, this guy can't be a drug trafficker. He can't even afford a real attorney. And then what we do to dispel that second part, that they're not being well represented, is we try the heck out of it and we show them, look, they're getting, this guy's got a great attorney. Maybe I was wrong about public defenders. He's certainly getting good representation, but the important thing that I've gotten across to the jury is my guy doesn't have money. So how can he be Pablo Escobar as a drug trafficker? Because we represent a lot of people in drug trafficking who are just mules. You can be charged. Drug trafficking is merely the possession of a certain amount of drugs. So if a drug dealer gives you a certain amount of drugs that make trafficking weight and tells you, here's $50, go take this package down to the BP station, you are committing the offense of drug trafficking. And so it depends on whether it's a good idea to let the jury know. But that's our decision. The judge doesn't tell them this is a public defender. They just it's something that we decide whether it's in our client's best interest. In addition to consulting with our client about that, whether it's something we want the jury to know.
Next, And this may be the last one, so if you have any questions, please get them into the chat and take a look at the survey link. Two more questions. Do you choose which public defender to assign to a case depending on the crime someone is charged with? I know you talked about murder earlier, but what about all the rest of them?
Right. We basically, the way we run our office is that I went to each attorney and said, what kind of cases do you want to do? What are the things you're interested in doing? And after doing all that, everything was covered. We had people who wanted to do misdemeanors, that wanted to be in district court and have a lot of cases and help a lot of people. There are people who only wanted to do the higher level felonies. And so I was very fortunate in that they kind of self-selected the types of cases they wanted to do. But yes, we assign cases based on what cases certain attorneys do. We don't generally have attorneys do everything, because these each, depending on what kind of case it is, they'll be in different courtrooms. And so if they're doing all different kinds of cases, they're going to be required to be in 7 different courtrooms at the same time.
Okay, to clarify something, if I need a public defender and it's not a very serious crime, will I get the newest or youngest person so that they can get experience with what I'm accused of? Or are all the public defenders in Guilford County experienced in criminal defense?
Well, all of the attorneys that we have in Guilford County are experienced. The least experienced attorney we have has been doing cases for almost 4 years, has been an attorney for almost 4 years, and they've been in the public defender's office. So I don't think I mentioned that our attorneys have at any one time between 125 and 225 clients at any one time. So you've been doing this for 3 or 4 years. You're a lot more experienced than some people who've been doing it for 10 years. And then misdemeanors, less the lower level in terms of punishment cases, it really depends. In High Point, when I was there, I did misdemeanors and murders. In High Point now, the most experienced attorney in our entire Guilford County office handles misdemeanors. Because of his abilities, he's able to handle twice as many as anyone else, and he likes doing it. He's tried enough murder cases and rape cases. He's ready to do that. Over here, we have the people who do misdemeanors in the Greensboro office range from people who've been with us. The most experienced one, who does primarily misdemeanors, has been in our office for, I think, 12 years, and the least experience has been with us for about 5 years. So in the way we do it, again, it varies office to office. For example, the district attorney's office, new people only do misdemeanors, and the longer you are, the more higher level cases you do. So it's more of a progression where we do it from a different standpoint. So it really depends.
Okay, you talked earlier that in civil cases, you're not entitled to a public defender, you are for criminal cases. But then you started talking about different kinds of courts. Can you briefly explain the different kinds of courts and if there's a difference in what kind of case they hear, like Superior Court, District Court? Can you kind of explain the differences?
Sure. I was very general in saying that we don't have court appointed for civil cases, because you are entitled to a court appointed attorney if in cases where they're trying to take your children away, where Department of Social Services, we have what's called parent representation. And that's a civil case, but we do appointments for that. We don't have, in our office, our public defenders don't handle that, but private assigned counsel. You are entitled to court-appointed counsel if they're trying to take your children away, for example. But with regard to just criminal, here in Guilford County, let me first start from North Carolina. Every criminal offense, from murder to trespass, starts in district court. And in Guilford County, we have 4 criminal district court going, 3 in Greensboro going every day, and 1 other in Greensboro going 3 days a week, and 2 in High Point going every day. That's for just criminal. That doesn't include traffic cases, but there are 6 to 7, depending on how you count, district courts going every day. And then we generally, in Greensboro, we have 2 superior court sessions going every week. And in High Point, we have 1 superior court 4 out of every 5 weeks. Superior court are week-long sessions of court. District court are daily courts. So every day in district court, any of our district courts, there are going to be, because we have limited it because of the pandemic, there are 250 defendants on in each district court every day in district court. And then in the superior courts, there are, and again, limited by the pandemic, there are 250 criminal defendants in superior court in the 3 superior court sessions that are going every week. Now, before the pandemic, trying to limit it, you would have anywhere between 300 and 700 defendants in each district court every day.
John,
We got plenty of work.
You're getting incredible kudos in the chat, and I think we might be able to save it and get it to you, but you have fans at the League of Women Voters, you have fans among everybody who thought it was just amazing that you were advocating for people who were in jail. It's good to know that the Constitution guarantees should not be called technicalities. There's all kinds of wonderful things being said here. Lots of wows and lots of just great. And
Well,
thank you for
I'm
taking care of this.
I'm just saying what everyone in this office is saying and doing. I'm proud to represent them.
Okay, well, I want to thank everybody, and everybody's hung around till the end. People aren't leaving. The comments are amazing. You've been just so gracious to give up so much time on this and provide such great information. I have a feeling you'll be getting some follow-up, will you talk to our group? So I just want to thank you on behalf of the Education Committee, the other committees, and the entire Human Rights Commission, and everybody, all the people that have just trying to help out the people in Greensboro and Guilford County. Thank you for taking care of this, and thank you to the people in your office who are here. And it's just good to know that you are as passionate about people who've had bad luck or problems. It's just really good to hear you say all those things. So
Well,
thank you. Our next session.
I'm proud to do it.
Our next session is on February 3rd. And on the survey that I have sent in there multiple times, there is a place for you to sign up to get email about registering for that event. And it is the 3 Ps. And I tell you, I've got so many things going on my monitors. It's plea bargains, parole, and what's the third one?
I think probation.
Probation, thank you. Plea bargains, parole, and probation, the 3 Ps. It'll be February 3rd. And if you go to that survey, you can sign up to be notified about it. John, again, thank you very much. Jody, do you want to say anything?
No, I just encourage everyone to fill out the survey if you can. It gives us really valuable information about where to go with next topics. You know, with some series that we develop, we actually identify the topics ahead of time. We really want to give you the chance to tell us what you need to hear. So for those of you that are still here, please take those few seconds to fill out that survey. Let us know what topics you're interested in. And thank you. I see many, many advocates, reentry advocates on the call. I really appreciate hearing from John. What a lucky opportunity we have here to sit and chat with the Guilford County Chief Public Defender. How many people have the opportunity to do that? So thank you so much for joining us this evening. And yeah, we will close out the meeting unless there's any other comments or questions.
Thank you all. Fill out the survey and good night.
Good night,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.